Hey guys, it's Gabby. Welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing you how to draw the perfect heart on your nails step by step. I figured with Valentine's Day coming up, it kind of made sense just to go back to the basics before getting into some new Valentine's Day nail art. So all you're going to need is a dotting tool, looks like this, and then some kind of small brush, paintbrush, just something that's going to give you small lines. And I will be showing you how to do this using gel nail polish and regular nail polish. So I hope this video helps you guys out, and let's get right into it. For the first example, I'm going to be using gel nail polish, and before I start, I like to take whatever color I'm using and place it on a piece of plastic. Sometimes I'll use a plastic baggie. This one I think is a random wrapper of striping tape or something like that. Just something that makes it easier to dip my dotting tool into. And like I mentioned, you are going to need a dotting tool or a bobby pin to create your heart. So typically a dotting tool does have two sides, one's bigger, one's smaller. And even if you know how to use a dotting tool, I would just do a few practice dots just so you can kind of figure out how big you want your heart to be and also get consistent dots. Honestly, the dots that you make are going to determine how easy it is to draw and also how good your heart's going to turn out. So to create your dots, you're going to dip your tool right into the polish that you're using and then press down to make your dot. And basically how it works, the harder you press down, the bigger your dot will be, and then the lighter you press, the smaller. So you can kind of control how big or small you want it, even though you're using the same thing. If you flip it to the other side, you can get even smaller dots. If you want your heart to be smaller, you're going to use really small dots. If you want your heart to be bigger, you're going to do bigger dots. If you want it bigger than that first dot that I made, you can dip it in the gel and then kind of swirl it around, but I will say it's harder to keep it a consistent big dot, if that makes sense. So I would stick to the smaller dots, but that is an option. And then to clean off my dotting tool, I just swirl it around in some nail polish remover and wipe it clean. Besides your dotting tool, the only other thing you're going to need is a small detail brush. This is the one that I'm using. I'll link a few that are similar down below. And you just want it to be as small as possible, and that will make this process a lot easier. Alright, we've covered all the basics, so now it is time to draw our heart. I'm using the bigger side of the dotting tool. I dipped it into the gel polish, and then I'm going to place a dot in the top corner of my nail. After that, I am going to re-dip my dotting tool. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It really just depends. You just want to make sure there's enough polish on the dotting tool still. And then when I go to place the other dot, I'm going to make it really close, but not make it touch. And you'll see why later, but you don't want them to overlap too much. So I'm putting it right next to it. After that, you're done with the dotting tool, so you're going to grab that small brush, and you're going to use this to complete your heart. So when I use this, I don't add any more gel to my brush because there's enough with the two dots to complete my heart. So basically, I'm going to take the brush and I'm going to start at one of the dots on the outside and drag a diagonal line towards the middle part of that heart. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side to create a triangle shape. This is also why I think it's easier to use gel polish, because you can really take your time and you don't have to worry about those dots or any of the polish drying, because it won't dry until you go to cure your nail. So after that, this is the easy part. Again, I'm not putting any additional gel polish on my brush. I'm just going to fill in that middle area by dragging the polish from those two dots around my nail. After you're done filling in that middle area, you can go ahead and cure your nails underneath your lamp. And that's it. As you can see, it gives you the perfect heart. And I would say this is kind of the standard size heart, but if you want a smaller heart, again, you just need smaller dots. So for this example, I'm showing you the same exact process, just using the smaller side of the dotting tool. When I make smaller hearts, I will place the dots a little bit further apart just to make sure they don't run together. And then again, I'm going to use an empty brush and create my two diagonal lines to make that triangle and then fill in the middle. After you've cured your hearts, you can go ahead and apply your top coat. I did use a matte top coat here just so you can really see the hearts and not have the glare of my lights, but this is the final look. And now I'm going to show you a few things you want to avoid. So when it comes to placing your dots, I know I kept saying don't make them too close, and this is why. When you make them too close, it ends up looking I don't even know what this is, kind of this potato-y peanut shape. It doesn't have the dips of the hearts that you would like, and especially with gel, they'll keep running together even more because it's not drying. So again, just make sure you're putting them a little bit further apart so they're not touching. And then also when you go to make those two diagonal lines, I guess this is kind of personal preference, but try not to make them too long, because then you're going to end up with an extremely long heart like this. So if this is the look you're going for, you could do that, but I really try to go for more of a equilateral triangle shape instead of Oh my gosh, this is taking me back to school. I guess an isosceles triangle or something like that. I might be messing that up. You get the point that I'm trying to say. And if you're wondering, okay, well, what if I put my dots too far apart? Well, I'm going to show you right now. So if you put them too far apart, this honestly isn't that bad. It's just going to give you a different heart look. So as you can see, a lot wider this time, again, doing those same two lines. And the main difference you're going to see here is just going to have more of that middle dip part. So you may be going more for this look in general. I think it does make it a tiny bit harder, just a tiny bit, because you have to kind of fill in that middle roundness too. So I think it leaves a tiny bit more room for mistakes compared to the first example, but this still is an option. I still think it looks cute too. For the next example, we're going to be using regular nail polish, and it is pretty similar to gel, but there are a few differences I want to point out for you guys. Again, I will start by placing some polish on a piece of plastic, but I do this right before I'm ready to draw my heart because this will dry. I also put a little bit less just to make sure I'm not just wasting nail polish. And then after that, when I'm going to draw the diagonal lines, I will put polish on the brush because again, you're working against nail polish drying. So if I try to drag around the nail polish from the polka dots, it's going to end up being lumpy, bumpy, and you don't want that. So instead, I'm going to dip my brush into my nail polish as I go, and I do try to work quickly when I do this. As I was trying to fix up a few areas, the nail polish was just a little bit too dry to work with, so I'm going to let that go as the first coat, let that dry completely, and then I'm going to go in and just fix up those small areas with my brush and a little bit of nail polish. And this is just to even out any spaces, fix any gaps there may be. If there's a spot, you can fix that too. And typically from this, it might get a little bumpy. As you can see, it's just not as smooth as my gel polish. So your top coat is going to be really important here. Make sure you let your heart dry completely, especially with a color like red. You don't want it dragging around your nail. And then when you apply your top coat, I really just kind of glide it gently over the heart so it doesn't smear or anything. And as you can see, it also smooths everything out. And this is what I was saying. It's pretty much the same process, slight differences, different ways of doing a few things, but it still gives you the same result. And here is what that looks like with a matte top coat.